Hello and a very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with Frank Rausan Pereira. Since you're here, I would like to thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team is running a daily quiz. The winner will get to interview me in a program called Hot Seat that airs at 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Details are in the description of this video. Here are the UPI IDs for those who would like to contribute. They are also in the description of the video. A small contribution you make will be a giant leap for us here to keep the content going. Do continue to show your love and support. And now on to the discussion. There are a few things that can dampen India's love for cricket. Not even, it turns out, a monstrous second wave of a once-in-a-century pandemic that has overwhelmed parts of the country. Even as India's busiest towns and cities, including the national capital of Delhi, have come under lockdown or dusk-to-dawn curfews, the country is going ahead with the Indian Premier League. Earlier this month, the BCCI president Sourav Ganguly confirmed to the media that the IPL 2021 events would proceed as scheduled. Meanwhile, Ravichandran Ashwin, Indian cricketer, withdrew from the Indian Premier League on Sunday to support his family during the pandemic, dealing a significant blow to the glitzy tournament. About playing sport during a pandemic, England's World Cup winning captain said it was possible as long as it didn't disturb what was happening in the public eye. Inspired by his countryman Pat Cummins' gesture, former Australian pacer Brett Lee on Tuesday decided to donate 1 Bitcoin, approximately 40 lakh rupees, to help India in its fight against the raging pandemic. Cummins on Monday won lots of hearts when he announced a $50,000 donation towards the PM Cares Fund for oxygen supplies in India's hospitals. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze whether we should have sports events during the pandemic. Joining me on the program today are Nilanjan Datta, Media Director, All India Football Federation, and Shekhar, Luthra, Sports Journalist. Thank you to my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Shekhar, let me start the program with you first. There's a lot of talk about whether we should have sports events, especially when a country is on its knees, when there are so many cases, when there are so many deaths, when, people or states have gone into localized lockdowns. Even in the IPL, we've seen that a section of cricketers led by Ashwin have walked away. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, Frank, it's very difficult to say whether to have some kind of entertainment inside the closed or lockdown stadiums, I would say, or just leave the public like this. But my concern is more about the players. I think in this pandemic, when people are dying, when people are actually gasping for breath, can you have a purely entertainment kind of cricket, just to entertain these dying people? Or can you let your players to be at the mercy of, of God, that if something happens to them, they will not get any bed in any of the hospitals across country? And especially when the IPL has come to Delhi and Ahmedabad, where there is absolutely no bed. And if there is a bed for BCCI, then it's a criminal charge, because how can they have a bed for a cricketer or for any player when the entire country is asking for a bed, or the entire people are dying on the road? So both ways, you can't have cricket in these kind of circumstances. This is criminal. We are not entertaining people, but rather we are rubbing salt on their wounds. And look at the statement, how Zampa or other Australian players have been saying while after going back from IPL, that we are amazed. How can companies are spending so much on cricket when people are dying without any medical equipments? This is the kind of apathy or the sympathy we are getting from outside the world. We are begging to the world for the medical equipment, and we are going ahead with IPL. I'm sorry, I'm not for this kind of cricket.
Okay, let's broaden the scope of the discussion and bring in a few other aspects into the picture as well. Nilanjan Datta, I'd like to come to you now. What goes through the mind of a sportsman, especially when they are going through something like this? Because everything that a sportsman knows is about keeping fit, about playing, because that's the only thing that a sports person understands. How difficult is this kind of a situation for a sportsman and a sports body?
Well, these are prior commitments. Obviously, what Shekhar ji says, there is a very valid point to it. But such tournaments or any tournament during the pandemic or since the pandemic, any sporting action that has been played all over the world, not just in India, have been played in a bubble, which is totally secured. But having said that, all sports person, be it cricketers, be it footballers, be it any other player, be it any athlete, obviously they are also human beings, and the socio-economic and the sociological context, can they just turn a blind eye to it and stay away from it despite all their attempts to do so? I trust that won't be possible ever for anyone. But yeah, I can only say, having been involved into operational aspects of sporting action since the pandemic, wherein sporting live action in India was kind of kick-started with the Indian football, with the Hero I League qualifiers, and then simultaneously the two leagues, the Hero Indian Super League and the Hero I League. The environment, just to bring it out, was played totally under a bubble, wherein the entire hotels were secured. Everyone was undergoing tests, even the waiters in the hotel, even the drivers, and they were also all made to stay in a bubble. And these tests went on for almost all the duration of the 3 or 4 months that the tournaments were held, and every 3 or 4 days. But beyond this, medical facilities and the medical parameters which one needs to adhere to, which I trust also is being adhered to during the ongoing Indian Premier League IPL. There are certain other factors which Shekhar ji mentions, that can someone, a human being, you, me, means Frank, yourself, Luthra ji, or myself, can we, despite all our professionals or all our commitments, just turn a blind eye to everything what's happening? Okay, we won't be getting affected by that. I'm not taking any political stance out here. As a human being, can we? Therein stays the big question. But yeah, they are held behind what do you say, a bubble, which is absolutely sacrosanct. And they even fly in chartered flights. They travel just in one specific vehicle while they are in one place, in one city. But the challenge this time from the logistic and the operational side, I understand that's being played in various cities. Maybe the IPL in Dubai was safer, but that's a maybe in that. I'm not saying that it was safer. Maybe it's just a general opinion which I come across.
Absolutely.
Two things. Frank, what Nilanjan was saying. Obviously, he's an administrator. He understands better how bubble was created and by a bubble. I remember I was in Dubai during the last IPL. The bubble was absolutely secure because it was no more, the virus was not traveling through the air. Right now, it is airborne. You cannot have any complete secured air bubble during an airborne kind of transmission. That's what the Australians also said. That's how some of the players got contracted by COVID-19. If you, Devdas Padikkal, all this, Akshar Patel, everybody, there were so many groundsmen. And I also remember talking to some of the BCCI people, in recent days, that how they are also worried that a company now which is obviously managing in Dubai, it was a different company which was managing biobubble for BCCI or IPL. That was Strata, or I don't exactly remember their name. Now they have changed that company just to save some money. They have got some unprofessional people to do all these things. It's fine. I mean, I'm not getting into the details what this company is going to be like, that how they are going to manage. But the point is, when it is airborne, you cannot have a completely secured air bubble. Number two, when Nilanjan was also talking about the prior commitments, Nilanjan, this is not a India versus Australia or India versus England match. That's what Australian Prime Minister also said. You have gone into your private jets, and when you come back, you have to manage your own entry. We are locking it down. We are not allowing any any flights from India. Now you take care of yourselves. That's how the government heads or the different governments are reacting to this situation. So there are differences. If it is an ICC event, I understand there is T20 World Cup, maybe whether that will be shifted out of India or not, that's a separate issue. But we cannot compare the two situations. Just to what Nilanjan was saying.
Just to follow up on that, as a pure person, as a pure spectator and lover of sport, at least now, Shekhar, Luthra, I have something to see, something to look forward to in the evenings in the form of the IPL or any of the other sports tournaments that are going on. I clearly remember lockdown one, when there was no sport event happening anywhere around the world, and it felt like a big part of my life was missing. Now I'm getting to see the NBA, I'm getting to see the UFC, I'm getting to see the IPL, I'm getting to see the football tournaments around the world. And at least I have something to look forward to rather than just this gloomy phase. So there's that other phase and the other aspect as well.
Well, Frank, you're absolutely right. Even I was into this kind of desperate situation during the first lockdown. I thought that was the biggest challenge for any country. But this time, this pandemic is even worse than what happened last time. Last time, when NBA was cancelled, when all the other sporting activities, in fact, the Olympics were cancelled or the postponed, that was because there was no medicine, there was no remedy to any of this kind of problem. Right now, there is vaccine. When NBA is getting started, when NBA is having games, it is because most of their people have been taken care of. There is more than 26% of vaccination, held there. So problem is whether this is under control. In India, this wave is much worse than the last wave. This is like Brazil. We have even overtaken Brazil. The entire United Kingdom was locked down for 3 months. Now they have again started opening up. Have we done that? No. In 519 cases, there was a complete lockdown in India. Right now, we are dying, we are suffering, but there is no lockdown. My problem is not, the country can have cricketing events or other events, but can you have any remedy for airborne kind of transmission? Do you have any 100% proof that any player or any official will not die because of this? If that happens, what will you do? Remember that match in Sydney or wherever, in Australia, when Phil Hughes got hit there and he immediately died there inside the ground. Do you have a situation like this, even if somebody, some player is hit by a ball, a hard ball, to take him to hospital? Where will you take him? To my house, to your house? Whether he'll be needing oxygen, or whether he'll be needing all kind of equipments, medical equipments. Can you ensure that? And if you are ensuring, believe me, it's a criminal contempt. It is basically saying that this 10 bats or this 1 bat. Remember, only yesterday, Delhi High Court has come down very heavily on Delhi government that we have not asked for any 100 beds in a 5-star hotel. If the judges are saying all these things, how can we ensure a complete safety for our players?
Right. So points taken. Let me take the discussion forward now, Nilanjan. So let's also look at it from another perspective and look at it from a perspective of the international sporting events, because there are several that are going to take place. We have the Olympics as well, postponed once, going to come up now again. Is all of this going to have a bearing on any of the sporting events to come, or do you believe that the people want some kind of a relief, at least through sports?
Well, it's a subjective matter, if you ask me, Frank. Whatever Shekharji says is absolutely valid. And given the society that we live in, are we totally unaware or turning a blind eye to what is happening? I don't have any political allegiance to anyone. Absolutely not. And never did I have any political allegiance to anyone. But are we so far away? Are we in the right frame of mind? Are we in the utopian society which we aspire to live in at the current moment? Perhaps we are not. The circumstances here are entirely different in our country right at the present moment, and it's unfortunate. In fact, each and every call to my parents or to my relatives or friends, I believe, it pertains the same even to Frank, to Shekharji, and all the population in India. The first one thing which one speaks is "Sab theek hai na, ghar pe, take care." So if that's the mindset, can we really enjoy something which is going on in an era of 5K now, 4K or 5K? There are many options. It's not just cricket, Frank, or international sports. Obviously, sports is kind of my bread and butter and is the only thing which excites me. You have so many things to watch on your laptop. You have so many series, so many flicks, so many films, but do we really have the time and the peace of mind to be going into that and watching it? It's still a subjective matter. Maybe a percentage of the society still wants to watch the IPL or any sporting action just to get some relief as to what is happening, left to be a kind of, not I won't say adamant, but take some mind out from what is happening. It's a subjective matter, but how long? For how long? This is the question which we are asking ourselves. And if my neighbor, if my family, if my colleague is infected and the danger of me getting infected, my wife, my daughter, my elderly parents, my in-laws getting affected can happen any time. Do we have the peace of mind? Do I have the peace of mind? Maybe not, very honestly.
Absolutely, Datta.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this other aspect then also. Shekhar, Luthra, I'd like to come to you now. We are talking about all of this, so let's put this aside for a change and look at it as, sports enthusiasts, as people who love sports. How long can we do this? How long can we stay away from sport? Because let's not forget, this pandemic is not a localized issue. It has to be wiped out from the entire world. Only then can we say we are going to be totally safe. Either we develop herd immunity or we develop some kind of a cure for it. In such a kind of a situation, how do we deal with this from a sports perspective, and how long do we not entertain sports?
I think we are in a very challenging times. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a medical expert, but from a purely, somebody who has covered sports or who has lived or, breathed sports over last 30
I asked
years
this
or
question.
so.
I asked this question also because there is a commercial angle attached to sports. It's not just about entertainment. There's a lot of money that is involved as well when we talk about sports.
I understand that. In 2 or 3 weeks back, when the top players like Djokovic or anybody, they had a scare of COVID. Meaning, can you actually beat this kind of situation where they are absolutely in the bio bubble? They are never getting out of this. They are very professional. They are probably the best sports people in the world. So point is how and when to start. I think the right time to start is when we get the 2 jabs of this vaccine. That is the first thing which comes to my mind as an ordinary citizen. If we are obviously through this immunization, this vaccine program, obviously our body is still, little bit adapted to this kind of taking this kind of all the pandemic situation. But how much time will it take in a country like India, where more than 1 billion people are there? It may take 2 years or it may take 3 years. Can we wait till then? My answer is again no. We obviously can't live without sports for so long. But then you have to create an environment where obviously you are speeding up the vaccination program for your athletes, for your Olympic bound athletes. You are giving them vaccines. So similarly, I think, like my daughter is in class 12th, she's still awaiting for her exams. She's not been, she has read everything. She's being completely mentally prepared, but she's not been able to take her exams. So what can be done about that? I always believe, I spoke to teachers, obviously the people I know, that these students should be given jabs first of all, and ask them to take their exams. So that kind of situation we have to brought everybody in, especially our sportsmen. Once we are prepared up to that situation, maybe we can open up this entire market, entire sporting market, along with the biobubbles. Again, we have to be in the secure zone. We can't let them out in the public. So again, it's a challenging situation, not just physically, but also mentally for them. The players are suffering. The players are feeling the heat. They can't be away from their families all the time. They can't be, just on the quarantine if they go out of that bubble. So it's very challenging situation, Frank. Frankly, I don't have any answer to this. But right now, I'm only bothered about, God forbidden, no such thing should happen to India or any player, to any IPL player, where they are in a serious medical conditions and they are not getting bats. If that happens, I believe me, we will be in the worst situation in the entire world. We'll be given a complete, bow down by everybody in the world. So I don't want that kind of situation.
Absolutely. Yes, Nilanjan, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, just to add on to what Shekhar ji said, obviously sports is a business. It's a huge business all over the world. You mentioned about the commercial angle, but if you look at the commercial activities and the overall organization and the marketing of sports, who are the most important stakeholders? The players. There are no one else who are above the players in any case. And it's not just all sporting body, the IOC, FIFA, Asian Football Confederation, UEFA, all of them, including the organization where I'm working at the present moment, the health and the safety of the players and the officials involved with it cannot be compromised at all. There needs to be a stage when Indian football again restarted live sporting action in India. We waited and waited and waited, and we felt, okay, the situation is now at the present moment fair enough, means safe enough for us to be starting action, but with limitations. Obviously, no more spectators have been allowed in the stadiums so far, but at the cost of the health of whom? That's the most important question, and that's not just a question which is pertaining to the three of us. It's a question which has been asked by all sporting bodies all over the world and all people who have humanitarian angles and aspects to their lives, I guess.
Can I
Yes,
ask you, Nilanjan, just one question for my knowledge? Are you actually considering giving the Covishield or Covaxin jabs to your players? Is that in your plan of things?
Well, I'm not in a current position to be answering that. Obviously, that is on the list of priorities, definitely, because it also depends on how the players are traveling at the current moment and where are they traveling at the current moment. But I can say that the Asian Champions League Group E matches are ongoing in Goa at the current moment. Tomorrow is the last match day, and clubs like Al Wahada from UAE, Al Rayyan SC, coached by Laurent Blanc, from Qatar, and Persepolis, the UAE and the Qatar club, all of the players and officials have come here already vaccinated. Though there are tests going on every third day. There has been tests. I'm just still counting how many tests I've gone through. But Shekhar ji also raised a very valid point about the Olympic participants, the Olympians who are to represent India. Obviously, the vaccination needs to be taken care. And just stepping a bit aside from this entire discussion, I trust the vaccination drives needs to also be a home-to-home one rather than people queuing up there. Because in this current situation, there may be people who would be contaminated with the disease just by standing in the queue.
Absolutely.
Like the polio drive home to home, why can't it be? I trust that's not the next step, that has to be the step.
Nilanjan,
I remember, what Nilanjan is saying. I went out, couple of days back to get myself vaccinated, first jab. But I came back because there was so much of queue and the people were actually not adhering to any kind of safety measures. So I came back. I still have to get my first jab. I'm just waiting for the first so that I can go out and again have it with my daughter. But right now, the situation, what Nilanjan was saying, it is difficult to be there in the queue and waiting for your chance.
Nilanjan, let me talk about another aspect. This is something that I'd like to take forward with you, because since you're so closely associated with the players, of course, none of the players are being forced to play. But what is it that goes on in their mind when they have to play games at a time like this? That is one. Secondly, does it become difficult for them, to ensure that they go into quarantine, come out of quarantine, these tests and all these protocols that need to be followed? Because sportsmen or sportswomen only know how to play. Suddenly adhering to this new set of rules, does it become a little more challenging?
Well, life of a sportsman is all they need to do is to sync the body with the mind. And when they do that, they have been quite used to now. If I speak about the footballers in the country, purely just the footballers of the country, they were quite used to. They said it was difficult, life in quarantine for 14 days when you stay into a hotel, can't even step out. Even the towels are just given to you, and means not even given to you. Food is kept outside and you bring it in. But slowly they got accustomed to it. And they were dying for sporting action. Obviously, the situation was entirely different at that time. I'm speaking of a time in October 2020, November 2020, December 2020, it went on till March and first week of April 2020. Even our national team, we went to Dubai to play 2 international friendlies, came back. Our June qualifiers are around the corner. The camp was supposed to be held, just a small example. Our national team camp was supposed to be held in Kolkata starting May the 1st in Kolkata in preparation for the qualifiers in Qatar in June. They have been cancelled because under current circumstances, we felt it's not the right time and there cannot be any compromise with the safety and the health of the players. So that was the decision taken by the management. Hence, it has been postponed for the time being. We are trying to take the camp away to Qatar at the present moment. Maybe the first week of earlier, we are able to get a green signal. The players will be flying after a series of tests and everything. But our camp was cancelled. But all I can say is they died to get into the sporting action. But at that time, the situation was entirely different. It's a subjective matter. I reiterate myself. It's a subjective matter as to how you look at it, on which side of the fence you are. And currently, I'm not sure or not aware as to how much they are. But when I'm speaking to some of the Goan players, FC Goa players, and also the other players who are playing in the ACL, obviously what is happening, they are not kind of unperturbed by them. Even in the post-match press conference, the coach, who was very close to a historic win for any Indian club against any club in the ACL, he said, had we won, it would have been a very good moment for the people of India.
Absolutely. Time to get closing comments now from both my panelists. Shekhar, Luthra, I'd like to start with you. Since we're talking about the players, let's also talk about how do these players now stay mentally fit. And, it's physically fit is one aspect, but they'll have to also stay mentally fit because there's so much that is happening around them and they can't let the situation get the better of them because they are sportsmen at the end of the day, representing the country and representing the states or whatever it is.
Frank, are we only talking about the international players? Are we only taking care of the IPL players? My problem is that when we talk about the players, I generally, prefer to talk more about the domestic players. They are suffering. Have they got the Ranji Trophy this time? Domestic circuit completed? No. They've only played couple of, some matches for that too, also 1 days, only for some age groups. That's all. So the real players, or what Nilanjan was also talking about, that they cannot, take any chances with the players. Obviously, we cannot take chances with the players, but we have to see the mental health of the domestic player whose, Roji Roti is dependent on the domestic cricket. Any domestic cricket, has they been compensated by BCCI? No. I don't know about the football. I hope they must be looking after the domestic players or small players. My thing is, we have to see all the aspects. It cannot be just that the IPL or Virat Kohli, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, they are getting all kind of attention. They are entertaining people. And right down somewhere, somebody is playing domestic from Himachal or Goa or any smaller state, and he's not even getting to, to eat his 2 meals. So is that a kind of comparison? So that's why I think there has to be a good balance. I also want sport to flourish. I also want them to get more money. I want this industry to go up. The 10,000 crore rupees, this industry, this IPL has become over last 13 years. So I don't want this to die. But the point is, you have to take care. You have to have an inclusive growth. You can't just exclude these smaller players and look after only 3-4, getting 18 crores every year, 15 crores. This is not cricket for me. This is not the sports for me.
Absolutely. And Nilanjan, close the show for us with your concluding remarks on the best way forward from the organization's perspective and the players' perspective as well. And fans too. How can we forget the fans? Without fans, there's no sport.
Yes.
Obviously, the players, the organization, and the fans all need to be in sync together. Under current circumstances, the authorities and the management maybe needs to have a relook at what it is happening, and the sociological aspects cannot be turned a blind eye into whenever you host any event, be it a cultural event, be it sports or any event. If any events, you just can't turn a blind eye to, and that's where the management and the authorities need to repay the faith which the citizens of the country have put in them, and that's the way forward for me.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that sports during the pandemic is a difficult proposition. The safety of the players is of utmost importance. We have to take into consideration the players, organizers, and fans as well when we look at sports. Going ahead with sports events at such a difficult time is certainly challenging, but also gives some kind of mental relief for those who are locked indoors. some sort of a breather when everyone is suffering to breathe. We have to ensure that the mental health along with the medical health of the players is taken care of when we have such tournaments or such sporting events. At the end of the day, it's a very subjective issue. All we can do is hope for the best. Once again, thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team is running a daily quiz. The winner will get to interview me in a program called Hot Seat that airs at 6 p.m. on Saturdays. The details are in the description of this video. Here are the UPI IDs for those who would like to contribute. They are also in the description of the video. A small contribution you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Do continue to show your love and support. That's it from me. See you again next time.